Good morning, Algebra 1 students. Welcome back to your Semester 2 final review. We're looking at Problem 8 today, which comes from Lesson 6.9. Our question is, which function is represented by the table of values below? So the idea is, one of these four equations is going to be able to take every x value up here, and when you substitute the x value in, it should give you the corresponding y value. Now we have two ways to do this. We'll again go the more, the more technical way, the way that people would expect you to do it, and then we'll give you a guess and check method as well. So, how are you expected to do this problem? Each of the equations we studied this year are in the form of a times b to the x power. A times b to the x. And we have we should know that a and b each stand for something in our exponential equations. Where b is the number we multiply by over and over again, we call it the common ratio. And that common ratio is going to be found by figuring out what we multiply by to get to each consecutive y value. The second value we have here, the a, turns out to be our y-intercept. And so we need to look for the y-intercept in the table. In fact, let's start with that one. If you think about what a graph looks like, hopefully you've seen one of these before. The y-intercept is always a point that's somewhere on the y-axis, right? Any point that's on the y-axis is 0, something. So that tells us that a y-intercept is 0, some value. And if you look in our table up above, each of these points, or each of these values in a table, are points. So for example, this is the point 4, 1/16. If we are looking for the y-intercept, we need a point 0, something, and we have that. This is the point 0, 16, which is actually a fancy way to tell us the y-intercept. Therefore, we know that a right here has to be 16. I'll show you right away. Alright, then we're looking for b. b is our common ratio, so what we multiply by every time. Let's see if we can identify that. 16 times what gets you 4? Well, you might look at that and say, well, 16 times nothing gets you 4 because you're multiplying, but the numbers are getting smaller. How do you multiply and get smaller? You might say, well, instead of multiplication, can't we think division? Sure, you could think that you divide by 4 every time, and you're right. But another way to look at this is, now that we're into these fractions over here, how do we get from one fraction to the next in terms of multiplication? It might be easier to think this way, right? Because to multiply fractions, you just multiply straight across. The top certainly has to be 1. 1 times 1 gets you the 1 here. But what does the denominator have to be? 4 times what is 16? Oh yeah, 4 times 4 is 16. And so hopefully we remember that instead of dividing by 4, you can also multiply by 1/4. And so we can see our common ratio here is 1/4. Therefore, our final answer, 16 times 1/4 to the x, which is c. Now I did mention there's a second way you can do this problem, and I'm just going to do it with, let's compare, C and D together, and I'll show you why it's not D and how we could find it is C. The second way we could do this problem is just by guess and check. So let's say we assumed the problem was D. We thought it was y equals 4 times 1/16 to the x power. Well, how do we check that? You check it by picking any x value you want and substituting it in and making sure the y matches. For example, let's focus on the point 1, 4. So I'm going to go ahead and replace the x with 1, and we are going to make sure that when I substitute in 1, the output is 4. To do that, you can do it on your calculator. You can follow up PEMDAS. 1/16 to the first power is just 1/16, and 4 times the 16th is 1/4, or if you do it on your calculator, 0.25. Does this y value match what's in the table? Certainly not, so we know it's not D, right? Then you could try the same thing with C, but be careful because they're going to set this up so that some of the others have some of the same answers, maybe not all the same, but some of the same. So again, I'll try the 1 in here. So y equals 16 times 1/16 to the first power. This ends up becoming 16 times 1/16. And when you multiply reciprocals together, it just gets you 1, which is not the right answer, and that's pretty awkward. Oh, because it's supposed to be a 4. Oh, reading. So that was supposed to be a 4 down here. Here we go. Second try. Excellent. And 1/4 of 16 is 4. See, checked myself before I wrecked myself. Easy enough. You should try probably all of those values in for the x over there just to make sure all of them work if you're not sure and if you have time. I see so many students finish with extra time. This is one of those problems you go back to. You try every value just to make sure you got it right. Thank you for tuning in, and I'm excited to have you back for further problems to help you succeed on your Semester 2 final.